Welcome to this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Today we're talking about Wish's pretty abysmal box office performance and how that might affect Bob Iger's succession plan. I got Mr. Matthew Muir all the way from the UK joining me today on this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Like I said in the beginning, we are talking about Wish's box office performance and how that might affect Bob Iger's succession plan. He's supposed to be out in a couple years. How is this animated movie, this flop, essentially? How is that going to affect that whole plan? But before we do that, I want to introduce my good friend, Mr. Matthew Muir. Welcome back on the channel, Matthew.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. And Matthew, I will be linking your Instagram. You don't have Twitter anymore, but we'll be linking your Instagram. No. Yeah, in the description down below. Okay, so Wish. It's no secret this movie is not performing well at the box office. It's really struggling. It had a budget of like $200 million. I think it's
only managed to make back about half of that.
About half of that, right? So doing really poorly. It did have a strong start in Japan, which was like, I believe, the second highest grossing thing that Disney's done since like Frozen 2. But even that, I mean, it's too little too late at this point, I think, for Wish. The only hope that it has really now is streaming. Hopefully it does bonkers numbers over there. But Matthew, to kind of touch upon our topic, the movie's not doing well. It's flopping in the box office. How do you think this is going to affect Bob Iger and his succession plan, or will it at all?
I honestly think it just might force him to accelerate his plans.
Okay, so when you say accelerate, you mean he would leave early?
Yeah, potentially leave earlier and just find a successor as fast as he possibly can. Because let's not forget, he's already brought Tom Staggs and Kevin Meyer back as consultants.
He did bring them back as consultants. Yeah, Tom Staggs and Kevin Meyer are helping him with, I believe, the linear TV stuff, right, and the streaming. So he did bring them back. Now, do you think it would be one of those kind of save face moments where he kind of says, you know what, I found the next CEO. I think we're ready to hit the ground running. So I'm going to step aside. We're going to get the new person in here, or
potentially.
Okay, you want to elaborate on that?
But it might be for the best.
Okay, because you think they'll do that approach to like kind of protect, so investors don't freak out, right? It won't be like the Sunday evening firing like Chapek, essentially.
Yeah, it won't.
Yeah, because that's tough, man. Because that Chapek firing was only a little over a year ago. It was like 13 months ago. Iger came back, and he's had a rough go at it too. It hasn't been fantastic for Iger either. So if they were to fire him like they did with Chapek, I think that could really hurt the stock price, number one, and maybe the stability of the. Just the overall stability of the company, doing that. But if he were to announce that, hey, you know what, we found a successor, let's say it's Tom Staggs, and I feel comfortable enough now that I'll be leaving in like 2 months or something, like, arbitrary day. And, we're ready to go. That might be something, Matthew, that you might be onto something with that, because that, if they do it that way, that shows confidence in the new person. And I think overall, I think fans and I think Wall Street are ready to move on from the Bob Iger era. Are you getting that impression as well?
Yeah, and it's not even really anger at Iger at this point. At this point, everyone is just growing dreadfully weary of it. Yeah. The anger at this point has segued into exhaustion and fatigue.
Completely. I completely agree with you, Matt. It's unsustainable, right? It's unsustainable, the amount of anger, frustration, all of the above that we're seeing with Disney right now. Some of it, a lot of it is very justified, and a lot of it is also very, very in my opinion, overblown. We've talked a lot about the other day about you know, the YouTube content creation, you know, world, and how Disney gets the eyeballs, right? And
yeah,
I think there's a lot of exploitation there, to sort of go after the mouse, you know, because it's clicks, it's money, it's AdSense, you know. And
but you also touched upon how any attempt by Disney to try and expose these grifters for who they truly are would probably backfire in any case, because those grifters would feel wrongly accused, and they'd be able to use that sense of feeling wrongly accused to their advantage.
Oh, absolutely. They would become martyrs, basically. They would become, you know, victims, right? And they would make pleas to their audiences that, you know, the big bad mouse is coming for their content, for their freedom of speech. Yeah, no, it's
and that they're lying about them.
Right, exactly. And that's why I said in that video, I'm like, I'm a big proponent of free speech. So I don't have to like someone's content, but they have every right to say, speculate, and have an opinion on Disney, just like I do. And like, I don't necessarily like the anti-Disney sort of side of things, or the super negative side of things, but they have every right to say that stuff, you know, because hey, you know, like I said, those creators and their audience, they probably don't like what I have to say. They probably think I'm a pixie duster, right? But I think that there's at least a mutual understanding here that, like, hey, you know what? I have a right to say my opinion and support what I want to support. They have a right to say their opinion and support what they want to support. But if Disney were to go after them, you're right. They look like victims here. Disney would essentially be punching down. This big multinational corporation is going after content creators. It's not a good look for Disney. They should definitely not do that. But yeah, you know, on the side note, I mean, I digress. I mean, really, that is a big issue though for Disney, because it does exacerbate the problem, I think, online, because it feels, I think, in my opinion, while things are bad, I feel like the online narratives make it feel worse than it actually is. You know, so now, man, I'm curious, because you approached me you know, about this topic, about Wish, the box office, and how it will affect Iger Succession. So do you feel that Wish is doing so poorly that's why, or is Wish just the final? Is this like the straw that broke the camel's back, more or less?
In my opinion, it might just be the final straw as far as Iger's concerned. He might eventually decide that either enough is enough.
Right, exactly. Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, he seems pretty. You've heard him in some of these shareholder meetings, right? Like, he sounds pretty tired. He sounds like he's kind of over it, you know. He
does feel like at this point he's on his way out.
Yeah, and that's why when people say, you know, hey, you know, a lot of people are worried, like, is he going to stick around past, you know, I think it's 2026. I keep telling people, you know, look, and I could be wrong. I obviously have no inside scoop on Bob Iger.
But it's feeling increasingly unlikely.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's not the same guy that he was pre-pandemic. It's clear that this guy is worn out and ready to move on, and he's getting a lot of heat right now. So he's going to want to make moves and get out for sure. So when do you think we'll hear this? Like, when do you think, in your prediction, Matthew, when do you think we'll hear word of kind of this transition, where Iger's out the door?
Middle of next year at the earliest, if not the end of next year.
So 2024, either like middle or the end of 2024, that's when we're going to get the announcement, hey, so-and-so, the new CEO, we're transitioning.
Yeah, what do you think, though?
No, I actually agree. We did a live show the other day. I think it was on Friday night, if I'm not mistaken, where I kind of predicted something very similar. I think that Iger, sometime in 2024, is going to announce who is replacing him, whether that's Tom Staggs, Kevin Meyer, Dana Walden, who knows? Maybe Hugh Johnston, the CFO, the new CFO, who knows? But he's going to do that. And he's going to let Wall Street know and fans know, hey, you know what? I'm really on my way out. And we got this new person coming in and things are moving. And he kind of has to do that, I think. You know, I think people are ready for this. He's been in there a long time. He's tired. Look what happened to Michael Eisner. After 20 years, he was really starting to fizzle out too, you know. Sometimes, you know, there's a shelf life on this stuff and people burn out. I'm ready for someone new to come in with some fresh eyes and kind of change things up a little bit, you know? Now you're still rooting, from what I understand, Matthew, you're still rooting for Tom Staggs to get that CEO spot?
Yeah, I am rooting for it.
Okay. And you think there's a chance they might do the co-CEO thing and have Tom Mayer in there as well, or?
Yeah, in my opinion, they almost certainly will. They haven't had that format since at least the beginning of the Iger era.
Right, exactly. And it causes issues, right? I think you kind of need that checks and balances in there to have that president position to kind of check the power a little bit. Disney was founded on that with Walt and Roy, the yin and yang, right? We had kind of that duality with we had Eisner and Frank Wells, which worked very well. I think it's time to get to bring that dynamic back again to the Walt Disney Company, and now more than ever, Matthew. Now more than ever, the Disney is bigger now than it's ever been, and you need. I think you need almost two people just to run this thing. This thing is massive now, so we'll kind of see. Now, yesterday, Matthew, we did a live show. And you asked me, or George and I, you asked George and I a fantastic question. What does it mean to be anti-Disney, right? Because we talked even just a minute ago, we talked about these content creators that at least come off as anti-Disney. I'm not going to try to, insert motive to anybody, I mean, it just, the perception is that they come off as anti-Disney, right? Whether that's correct or incorrect, I don't know, but that's the optics. Okay. Now you asked, what does it mean to truly be anti-Disney? And we answered the question on the live show, but what are your thoughts on this, Matthew? What does it truly mean when we talk about these negative Disney content creators being anti-Disney? What constitutes anti-Disney as opposed to just being constructively critical, in your opinion?
I do agree with the idea that it really is just wanting the company to either regress or go out of business. Either stay frozen in either 1966 or 1971, or just go out of business completely.
Yeah. And I don't understand that mentality. People want Disney to go back to just doing theme parks and studio stuff. And it's like, or not even theme parks and studio. I mean, when they say that, there's people on Twitter, I've seen people say that they want it to be just Disney studios and the theme parks. Like, get rid of Star Wars, get rid of Marvel, get rid of all of that stuff. And it's like, we live in a new world now. If Disney were to downsize to that level to that degree, where they would just
wouldn't last long.
Nah, it wouldn't last long. Yeah, exactly, Matthew. You would have Apple snatch them up, or Amazon, or one of these mega like tech companies buy them in a heartbeat. They have the most iconic, legendary franchises of all time. So we don't live in a world now where the Walt Disney Productions kind of company of like 75 would work right now in this new world. They would be snatched up so quick it wouldn't be funny, and people don't understand that. They're so married to the past that they just want to cling to that, but you can't go back to that. It's never coming back, So it's pretty crazy though. It's pretty crazy, but I agree with you, Matthew. I think that what constitutes being anti-Disney is, I think, the gleefulness, the cheering on of the stock price tanking, of Disney falling,
And I bet they would only be happy once Disney did file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Then and only then would they have their wishes realized. But even then, they probably still wouldn't be satisfied.
Well, it'd be tough, because a lot of people, like I said, it's Disney Disney news is still big money. It is. People like to hear about Disney. And that's why a lot of creators talk about Disney, even in a negative light, is because it brings the eyeballs. Well, if Disney goes under, and let's just say they get bought up by Apple or something, now they're just a subsidiary of some big tech giant. Now it's a little harder to do the whole, big Disney bad thing, because they're just a brick in Apple's castle, essentially, So they kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit with that, because it gives them less things to cover. They lose their boogeyman, essentially, right? If it does go under. So it's like, I feel like, yeah, that they're rooting for it to go, but at the same time, if it goes, that's a problem too, I wanted to ask you, Matthew, what are your thoughts? Because we don't really talk about this too much on the channel, but on like Twitter and like even like Instagram, we've talked about it, like in the DMs and what have you. What are your thoughts on David Zaslav? Like he's been making a lot of moves, right, with animation and all that. What are your thoughts on him?
I personally just hated him from the beginning.
From the beginning, what was it exactly that he was doing that you were like, no?
He just doesn't care at all about what Warner Brothers should be, and in my opinion, he cares even less than Iger and even Chapek.
Yeah. Well, the sad part for me is I'm very bullish on Warner Brothers, and I'm very bullish on their IP. You know, I've said it for a lot of years. Even like this weekend on the live shows, I was saying how, you know, they have a great library with the Looney Tunes, the Animaniacs. They got DC. They got a lot of great stuff. Even Harry Potter, the studio stuff is Warner Brothers. But, you know, I feel like David Zaslav is sort of missing the mark here because he doesn't really seem to. I feel like he doesn't really respect animation that much. Like we saw it with the Acme versus Coyote thing. He's canning a lot of animation. He's not really doing what's right. Look, animation for Warner Brothers is huge. I mean, they have these characters that have been underutilized, I would say, really since 2000, around that era when AOL merged with Warner Brothers back in the day, like 20 some odd years ago. The Warner Brothers characters have been so underutilized, like for decades. But if we can get good leadership at Warner Brothers and tap into that, I think Warner Brothers animation and the studio would be a force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, and see, I was opposite of you, Matthew. I thought initially Zaslav was going to be good for Warner Brothers. I heard a lot of good things about the guy. I was bullish on him, but then once he got in and I started seeing what he was doing and what he was cutting and how he was going about this, I'm like, no, this guy ain't it. And then there was this recent report just the other day saying that Warner Brothers has what was it, like a less than 60% chance of going bankrupt in the next 2 years. I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, without being purchased by Comcast or even Viacom.
Oh, now how would you feel about that? Like, okay, Comcast. Let's start with that one. How would you feel if Comcast Universal were to buy Warner?
Honestly, it honestly would just make Comcast look even worse.
Well, here's the thing too. I've said it a lot. It's no secret. I've complained about it a lot that I feel Universal gets a pass on just about everything, you know, with the parks, all of it. Even the politics of it, right? Do you think
that's starting to change at all or not?
Well, I'm sorry, do I think that would change at all?
Do you think it's starting to change?
A little bit, yeah. I do feel like some people are starting to wake up to that. I do believe, yeah, it is changing, but I think it would drastically change if they owned Warner Brothers. And the reason why is, number one, that they're a bigger power now, but number two, they're going to be in control of some pretty big franchises like DC, and they're going to be under a microscope like Disney was when they bought Star Wars and Marvel. You know, fans of DC are not just going to sit back and let Universal do whatever they want. If they own that franchise, you're going to see from all the Snyder fans and all that. I mean, I'm telling you, it's going to be wild if they end up buying Warner Brothers. Absolutely wild.
Comcast will be in serious trouble.
I'm sorry, what would that be?
Comcast will be in serious trouble.
Yeah, they would be essentially, I think, in the same boat as Disney with the fandom and constantly under scrutiny. You know. Because right now they're really not. Look, let's talk animation, right? Like Wish, we both agree, is not doing well in the box office. But, you know, people seem to gloss over the fact that Universal migration is tracking pretty poorly. It's only going to do like 13 million opening weekend domestic. We'll see how it does, though. To be fair, we don't know. It could have legs. It could do great. But so far, it's not tracking that great. The Teenage Kraken movie bombed, like miserably. You know, even Trolls, to be honest with you, I don't even think Trolls hit $100 million yet. So it's kind of like their animation is not really that great either, except for Mario. But Mario is a decades old beloved franchise. You know, it's more of the unicorn than the rule. You know what I'm saying? And but no one talks about that, right? No one really discusses the animation problems over there at Universal. You know, but Disney can't escape it. Now, I do understand Disney is a much more storied, legendary animation house. So there's
kind of an inevitability that it will.
Yeah, exactly. There's gonna be more eyeballs on that. So it's fascinating. But yeah, it's crazy, man. Kind of to bring it back. I mean, it's interesting that you think that Iger is going to announce this year, or now, I'm sorry, in 2024. You know, who the successor is and everything. I think you're right on that. I think you're right on that. And you know, maybe Wish was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, what do you think about Jennifer Lee though? She's head of Walt Disney Animation. Should she stay or should she get the boot?
I don't think she's done too much wrong, to be fair. So she could stay.
You don't feel like you don't feel like a lot of these animation problems have much to do with her?
No, not really.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point you make. I mean, if you think about it, like I just mentioned, a lot of the Universal stuff is struggling too. So there is an element here where it is outside of even Disney's control, like the animation environment right now. But yeah, it'll be fascinating. Oh, hey, look, on this channel, you and I know George too, we're all rooting for Tom Staggs. Hopefully he gets that position. I don't know. Bob Iger, you know, didn't do the greatest job picking the last CEO successor. But hopefully he's got some good people around him, and we can get Staggs in there or someone equal to him, comparable to him, and we can get Disney back on track. Because I'm ready for Disney to thrive again. I'm tired of negative Disney news. I'm tired of hearing all this stuff in the press. I want Disney to thrive, you know, and I know you do too. You're a huge Disney fan, so. But cautiously optimistic. But Matthew, I want to thank you as always for coming on the channel and talking shop with me. It's always fun. I will be linking your Instagram down below. But do you have anything else to say before we head out today, sir?
Not much, really.
Okay. Yeah, it was fantastic having you on. And I will link Matthew's Instagram information in the description down below. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. Really passionate Disney fan. If you're into Disney, if you're into the corporate end of things, you have to follow Matthew. He has a lot of great insight on this stuff. So definitely check him out on Instagram, link down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on Bob Iger, Wish doing abysmally in the box office and how that might affect the situation over there, the power structure over there at Disney. What are your thoughts on David Zaslav? What are your thoughts on the Universal animation as well? We would love to hear from you. Comment down below with all your thoughts, questions. As always, have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.